Good evening, Holliston, and welcome to the March 14th, 2024 meeting of the Holliston School Committee. Apologize for the late start, but we'll get right into it. We'll start with the call to the meeting to order, and we'll start with the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? And we'll say, take a motion to.
I do, but I have just a couple. She had some typos, but I sent those off to Lisa.
Okay.
Anyway, so it's not.
So then a motion as with the minutes as amended?
Yes.
Okay. And then do a second.
Second.
Okay.
By Dawn. And
so the only thing I'll add is that you'll see new to this consent agenda is the acceptance of gifts from the PTO. We have does anyone have any questions or anything about that? Okay.
Thank you, Keith.
Thank you very much, Keith. Thank you to the PTO.
And the PTO.
And Hef's in there as well.
And Hef is in there too. Great. Thank you very much to Hef.
The file was sorted by person who was receiving it, just so you could see. You know, I thought it was easier rather than having teachers jump around, so I just rather than by.
Is it so like by date?
It's sorted by teacher.
Okay.
Or the recipient, and then actually by amount in descending order.
Okay.
So put the bigger ones for each teacher higher.
Perfect. This is a lot of very generous gifts, so I really appreciate that, and I'm sure that it will be put to good use. So with that, I will, all those in favor? Aye, that carries 5-0. So thank you very much. We'll skip just briefly since we do have some people in the audience. And so there's a presentation in your packet about the Rams outdoor learning space. Are there any questions about it? We had a letter from Dr. Jordan that he fully supports this. Then we also have a letter from a teacher in there also expressing support for it. I know they put a lot of hard work into it. We could have them do a presentation, or we could just vote to accept essentially the gift of the work, and then let the administration take it from there. Does anyone have any questions? I know there's some Kasia and people are here.
No, I think just initially I didn't understand where the space was at all. I was not oriented at all. I couldn't understand it until I saw the aerial shots of, it's the back side of it, not the
Yeah,
the
no, we
cafeteria.
appreciate the
I thought it was the
supplemental
cafeteria
materials.
side, and I was like, this isn't making sense.
Yeah, we really appreciate the supplemental materials because it made it a lot
That helped a lot.
Yeah, we just couldn't understand it. I just couldn't understand it the last time, so it wasn't about not wanting it.
No, the presentation was very helpful, and the pictures, and the
Okay.
one question I had about the dumpster was answered, so I'm good.
It sounds like they're going to work around the dumpster.
Yeah, I'm good too.
Yep, so that clarified a lot of stuff. So,
I would move to accept the proposal.
do we have a second?
As presented. I'll
Second.
it, or Sarah can second it.
Okay. All's in favor? Aye. That carries 5-0. Thank you guys very much.
No, thank you. We didn't do anything.
That was great, and I appreciate it. Yes.
School committee.
So with that, we'll move on to the student representatives comment.
Yeah.
So Theater 370 presented their original play at the Massachusetts Educational Theater Guild 2 weeks ago. Holliston Co-op Gymnastics team placed 4th in New England at the New England Championship meet this past weekend. The first CPAC Unified Basketball versus Varsity Basketball game happened last Tuesday, and it was a huge success, and it was a really fun and exciting game. And then the Senior Showcase was last Wednesday. There were a lot of performances from seniors, including singing, a fashion show, dancing, and a game show where someone got their head shaved, so that was very new and entertaining. And then Tuesday, there's a high school band and chorus concert.
So this past weekend, 3 DECA teams qualified for nationals, which takes place in California at the end of April. For Science Olympiad at States, we had numerous top 20 placements. This happened at Wentworth University. Spring sports officially start on Monday. Robotics has a competition for FIRST Robotics this weekend held at the University of Rhode Island. Scholarships for seniors are now available, and applications have started for those. Red Cross Club is hosting a blood drive next week at the high school. And finally, the eighth graders are coming up to tour the high school next week. Thank you.
Wonderful. Be nice to them. Any questions for the student representatives? Okay. School committee individual comment. Amanda?
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
Cynthia? Sarah?
Just that I know there's Mathapalooza going on at Miller Placentino right now, I believe.
Pi Day.
Yeah, they
Yep.
just brought that
Pi
back, so
Day,
that was a
right,
great,
that's right.
fun math night. I think the book fair is going on right now in the Miller multi-purpose room. And I believe it's the last week for the raffle basket fundraiser. So
Yeah,
if you
get your
haven't
tickets.
gotten your tickets yet, make sure you buy. There's a bunch of really great baskets to win. So
And that's at
The town hall.
Town Hall, right, so not,
It's like 12 to 8.
yeah, the
right?
ticket sales are online though. So
Yeah.
okay,
I did already.
yes, I did too.
perfect.
That French version.
And then just as to the middle school, on Friday, April 5th through Sunday, April 7th, the middle school musical, Newsies, will be on. So check out the website, get your tickets. They've had sold out shows before, so looking forward to it. And then this past Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we had several indoor track runners at Nationals, which was hosted in Boston this year, both as individuals and relay teams.
Awesome. You stole my thunder about Newsies, but thank you. My daughter will be in that, so it's probably better coming from someone else. So anyway, thank you. I don't have anything else to add. So as we're moving right along and are like 10, 15 minutes ahead of the schedule. This is an opportunity for public comment. We've had one person sign up for public comment, but if there's anyone else, okay. So Barbara, why don't we? We'll
go first? No, I don't. Okay. Would you like me to?
yeah, just come up and if you just move the microphone down, that'd be great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Hi, good evening, Barbara Ryan, Irving Place. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the support of the PTO. I'm here in a role as PTO Mindshare representative and also a member of HDAC in that capacity, as well as a parent. This is for your information. I know I had written to you, Dan, and Dr. Kuska, and I'd met. So HDAC, which is the Holliston Drug and Alcohol Coalition, applied for a grant. We received it. We're in the second year. There's a young woman, Zoe, who is the grant coordinator. She's wonderful. She's been working with Mr. List and how do we create a group that's interested. We went to, with Chief Cassidy back in February, we went to a CADCA event, which it's changed what it means, but it used to mean Communities Anti-Drug Coalition, but it means something else now, but the same substance use misuse forum. It was very informative, overwhelming. And back in December, I had approached HDAC from a PTO Mindshare perspective and said, look, can we bring a speaker in? I presented who that could be. And on this committee, there's town leadership, the fire department, police department, youth and family services, clergy, PTO, other members, and it was unanimous yes. And they're giving 3/4 of the funds, and PTO Mindshare has funds and will do the other quarter. Met with Dr. Kuska and Dr. Menard and gave them information. They were supportive. Dr. Jordan is, Mr. List. So we've kind of done that homework. We know calendar time is always the big gift and challenge. And I don't think there's time this year, but just wanted you to be aware this would be during school hours to host this person or a person to talk about this. And I'm meeting with Mr. List before the school year gets out to see when this could be fit in the fall, hopefully, the fall time frame. So that's, again, the calendar is the challenge, and where do you fit these kind of things in, and it always takes away from something, or in the new school year, where can we fit this in? So the cost is covered, the need is there. Certainly we know substance use and misuse is a scary prospect in that landscape. It gets more daunting every day for our students and for children and even adults. So we're excited to partner with HDAC as a member in PTO, but we just, again, wanted to inform you this evening this is in the works. It'll take calendar time, but we trust Mr. List and obviously Dr. Kuska to say we can find that block of time. And it's a 90-minute program, meaning 10 minutes to assemble, 10 minutes to get back to class, and 70 minutes. And ultimately, we'd host at the middle school, and it would be age appropriate. People can opt out. High school, age appropriate. People can opt out. And then we'd host, I've talked to Mr. Hearn, and we'd host a town-wide event. And again, really compelling information, and hope if we can reach one people or more than that to make different choices around their health and substances, we think it will be successful. Pending.
Who's the speaker?
His name is Stephen Hill, and I went on down a rabbit hole for a variety of reasons back in November. And I did a huge search, and there was another person who's come to the community. He's a former pro basketball player. He also is wonderful and could be this, but the one I found, he's actually in his early 30s. By the time he was 18, he was dropping out of school. By the time of 24, he was a felon. He had done 7 programs, 30-day programs, and ended up in a year-long program that basically saved his life. And it was either go to prison or you can help make a difference in the world. And since then, he's been sober almost 12 years, has a family, 2 children, and he's a lawyer. And he's a felon and a substance user, misuser, and he's got, and I can put a packet together and forward to you, but he speaks to a lot of schools in this area. He's gone to Medfield, and he was so successful, they're bringing him back like every other year for juniors and seniors. He's gone to private schools in the area. He goes up and down the seaboard. He was recently in Louisiana. He's all over the country, and he actually was a speaker at CATCO, so I got to meet him in person. So there are many people who share their stories, but I think he's very successful in the age group we're targeting and looking to educate. And he was reasonable when you look at speakers and fees to do 3 events in a day. So that's, and I can send more information on that.
Great, thank you very much, and I'm glad the administration is on board with that, and that you've spoken with them and gotten their buy-in, so. But thank you for letting us know.
Yep, thank you so much. And thanks again for your support of the PTO.
Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. All right, Ann?
Good evening, Ann Canoni, 1135 Highland Street. Thank you, I haven't been here in a while. This has really been on my mind for a long time, and I have to say it. I feel like if I don't report this out, I'm not doing service to my career that I've had here, the time I've spent on the Math Curriculum Review Committee, and how strongly I feel about what I'm going to say for the opportunity for my child and for other students in the community. And I've had several conversations with people in the community, and I'm going to try not to talk too much about the Math Curriculum Review Committee because I know that that's a separate thing. But I do wish I could have an opportunity at a later meeting and bring some of the curriculum math people here to talk about some of the conversations we had there, because I don't want to overstep boundaries, but I wear 2 hats. I actually wear 3 hats. I'm a community member, teacher, and most importantly, I'm a mother of a child who excels in mathematics and loves mathematics. She's currently in 4th grade. She's going to be 10, planning a big Taylor Swift party for Saturday. So, but she's going to be in 6th grade before you know it, right? And I just worry that we're just going to continue talking about the question of, do we offer a full year algebra course in 8th grade? The conversation has been going on and on and on. It goes around in circles. No decisions are made, and it's not okay. Somebody has to make this decision. And as a member of the Math Curriculum Review Committee, it just felt like I think there's more to it than what's being reported. And last week or 2 weeks ago, when Mr. List was reporting on the switch from A to B, when he said kids will not be able to get to calculus. I know, Amanda, you're like, it's a no for me, right? And before he even said that, I wanted to come and say this since December, but I just haven't had a chance to, is that, do we want students to have access? I asked the community, I asked the school committee members, I asked the powers that be, do we want all students to have access to algebra in 8th grade? If we it's a reality, right? It's a reality of like, I'm not good at everything I do, right? And I think that if we want to have students have an opportunity, I don't know what you guys did, but maybe you can weigh in on this. But if we want students to have access to Algebra 1 in 8th grade, DESE puts out a accelerated pathway. DESE puts out an accelerated pathway, and I have it here for you. I will share it with you. I'm going to just read it quickly. Compressing the standards, this is if you want to offer a model high school Algebra 1 in middle school. Compressing the standards from grade 7, 8 in a model Algebra 1 course into an accelerated pathway for students in grade 7 and 8 could allow students to enter the model geometry high school in 9th grade, okay? And it puts out a flow chart. And that's not to say that we're going to get to every single standard in Algebra 1, but you're going to get to the standards that are necessary to move on to geometry, because in geometry you cover standards there. And maybe as a parent I know more, but I know more. When we had that meeting, a month or two ago, when we were reporting out on the Curriculum Review Council, I talked to other parents that are teachers in other schools, and they were even saying the same thing. Like, their algebra in 8th grade isn't like a full algebra course, but it gives enough of the standards. So right now, in 8th grade, we're saying we have an algebra course, but we don't. We don't have an algebra course, and I think somebody needs to make the decision. Are we going to have algebra? If we're going to have algebra, we have to have accelerated, and we have to teach the standards. If we're not going to have algebra, we don't have algebra, and we don't call it algebra. That's just how I think it has to be that way, because, and this isn't meant as what anybody else is teaching or how they're teaching it, but right now, I'm going to put it sort of in layman's terms. Right now, Algebra 1, what did you guys take in 8th grade?
Algebra.
Yeah,
Algebra 1, okay. Algebra 1 is like we would know as a pre-algebra course. That's it. Like, I know it's not based on a course, but those are the standards. It's a pre-algebra standards. They don't get to exponential growth. They don't get to quadratics. They don't get to factoring, and they don't get to probability and statistics. And that really is an algebra course. So I know I'm going over my 2 minutes. I'm just going to say a couple more things. Prior to us going to de-leveling 7th grade, we had about 50% of our students came up and took geometry, and they either took geometry honors or geometry CP1. Then, way before that, we did a bunch of other classes, but then they could take algebra 2, they could take pre-calc their sophomore year, and they could accelerate. And then 50% came in and took algebra. And at some point, we started offering that Algebra 1 Part 2 for a small cohort of kids. Currently, 100% of our 8th graders have to come in and take an algebra course. And if you look around other communities, we don't have that. Even I know Needham does, they call it Math 8. But when you're at Needham, they go in and they have like 4 cohorts they can go into depending on what they want to study. So I really think we have to really, somebody has to make that decision, because I've been on this math curriculum review now for 2 years, and I feel like it's almost like how some people feel on the scheduling, the block scheduling at the high school, or DSB at the high school. We just keep talking about it and talking about it, and I think that I know I want my daughter to have an opportunity to have algebra in 8th grade, and I know there's probably a lot of other people out there. I also think that when we hear people talking about the equity, and we talk about it's a Holliston problem, it's not just a Holliston problem, it's everywhere. And it's how we teach mathematics in the United States of America that is really the driving force, and I think we really have to think about that. And I also think we have to think about meeting kids where they're at and bringing them where they can go. And that is a good teacher, right? Like, you can have all these plans in the world, but if your kids can't do this stuff, you can't go forward with it. And I think, right now I'm teaching an Algebra 2 class, and it's for some students that just aren't there yet. But they come in every day, and they're learning, and they're building confidence, and that's okay to do that. Like, I just think it's okay to do it, and I just, I had to say this because it's been on my mind. So I hope I sounded okay, because I'm passionate about it, but I do hope that somebody can make that decision for us, because I think the Math Curriculum Review Committee is sort of like, we just want a decision. So we just need a decision. And I think the community needs a decision. And I think putting another committee together, delaying it another year, is just going to delay it another year and another year. And that's all I have to say. And obviously, I'm very passionate about math, and I'm passionate about my daughter having experiences that I wanted to have. So I thank you. And I will forward you my notes so you can see the progressions and things like that. Thank you. And I thank you guys for all that you do. And yeah, thank you very much.
Any other public comment? Okay. So that is a segue into the teaching and learning update.
Good evening, everybody. It's my pleasure to present and update to you tonight. And go to the next slide. I don't know why it's showing like that. A second. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to talk to you tonight regarding professional development, understanding by design of stage 1 and stage 2 in action. You can see actual examples, our curriculum reviews where we're at, our math community survey, and the action steps we're going to take to go with that. Okay, let's talk first about professional development. And if you can click on that link, please, Dr. Kuska. You can see this is the template that we have made for the district. And this is every PD day, we use the same template. And you can see on the top there, to stay on that in every one is listed how that session is directly tied to our strategic plan. So it says which strategic initiatives, and it also lists which Massachusetts DESE standards for professional development it's tied to. Thank you. You can get back out. You can go to the next slide. So then what I did, we get tons of feedback every time from every PD day. And that PD feedback is shared with all the principals, PD council members, and we look at that and really consider what PD we're offering in the future and see what we can do differently. You can read all those. Some things I wanted to point out on the secondary side. One things that we're looking at, they have asked in the past, the staff has asked for the past, more content-specific PD, and then also more time for more time to work on their stage 1 and their stage 2. I just wanted to point out a few things, and this was only from January 11th feedback. In the secondary schools, there's one person we had, Josh Cabral, come for the world language teachers. So Josh Cabral was incredibly helpful. Everything he talked about was so supportive to me. So it's an example content area PD for teachers. Somebody else said they want more specific PD, a subject-specific PD on best instructional practices and lesson designs. We're definitely going to keep that in mind for next school year. Two of the comments that they pointed out about the documentation time, work with course partners to evaluate and plan curriculum and assessments. That's what they said, which was great about that day. Somebody also said time to work on stage 1 and 2 documents. You can go to the next slide, some elementary staff feedback. Two of the things I wanted to comment on that, the content area PD. One person said, I found it worthwhile to meet with fellow Holliston colleagues to discuss the progression of language acquisition and proficiency in our classroom for our students, particularly in the French immersion setting. So they really had time to unpack and figure out how students obtain French language throughout the grades. Somebody else said they were thankful for time to dig into the new math curriculum. As far as the documentation time, one person said, each session was helping in building our ability to create safe and supportive schools and ensure curriculum is aligned to the standards and expectations are clear. Another person said, I would like more time to work with my colleagues on the alignment of standards and transfer skills. So there really is on people's mind, and that is the feedback that we're getting. If you go to the next slide, So we're taking that feedback and we're using that feedback on a continuous basis from every PD time to really plan our future PD. So if you look at that, we really need to look at more time for UBD, Understanding by Design documentation. We gave half of the January 31st Professional Development Day was dedicated, as well as more curriculum and department time. Specific content, Josh Cabral in the world language. There's a French immersion PD that we've been giving, and also secondary math book study. These are just a few of the examples that we're doing. There are trainings that's been defined from our curriculum reviews, and they're all regarding the curricular resources that are being brought forward, and we'll be doing that at the end of this year and next school year, and then also training on our new diagnostic assessments. We can go to the next slide. So what does UBD look like in action? So let me give you some examples. I'm not really going to get into the details, but I wanted to talk about 5 different ways that the stage 1 and 2 documentations are being used within Holliston Public Schools right now. So one example is when we have a change in standards. That is true in wellness. Grades 3 and 4 spend a lot of time this summer, and they continue to spend time on developing those lessons on those new Massachusetts wellness standards. A new class is another example. Shauna Frost and Joe Hicks worked a lot this summer and continue to work on developing a fashion elective course, which is very exciting. And they really kind of dug deep into the assessments and her lesson plans. So that's part of stage 2 and stage 3. Another example is supporting teachers when they get different course assignments. So high school algebra 1 and geometry, we've had a lot of new teachers, as you all know. So those stage 1 and stage 2 have been so helpful to the teachers, so they know that they're on par with their colleagues, so all students are getting access to the same information. Another example was for high school course. We changed the high school course team. So Dr. Ida Pappas was able to directly work with that new teacher on things that had been done in the past, and that person could hit the ground running, as well as with a middle school long-term Spanish sub. Dr. Pappas worked directly with that person, and they had documentation of what was done, had some lesson plans, had all sorts of things. This is a stage 2 example. So transfer task is common assessments. So our grade 3 through 5 Spanish teachers are in stage 2 and really having very thoughtful, productive conversations about what transfer tasks they all want their students to experience and what they think is productive. So they're really having conversations about what do the rubrics look like that, what are we asking the students to do, and having collaborative conversations. Another example of how documentation is being used is defining new scope and sequence. Joe Hicks has been working with our K-2 social studies teachers, and they've really spent a lot of time defining what all the units are going to be and really taking that big overarching view of what it should be done and what makes a thoughtful progression for kindergarten through grades 2. Some other examples, updating units. Joe Hicks has been working with 6th grade on a social studies unit about South America, and another great example is 7th grade's really digging into having a book club in the 7th grade. And so all 3 of the curriculum coordinators have been working hard on these. So James was working on all the math and science things too. So we've been hard at work, and they've actually been using the maps, the teachers, and they're finding them extremely helpful. And these are just some examples. If you can go to the next slide, please. So we've been busy with our curriculum reviews. In each world language, there is a link there, so you can click. If you click on, we're not going to now, but if you click on the world language, you have a timeline that is to be completed this school year. And the secondary ELA will be completed the end of this school year. Hopefully shortly, you'll be getting a report out from Dr. Kuska. We have been doing the science, technology and engineering, and that began this year and should be wrapping up this school year. And then math will also be wrapping up this school year. The science and the math also have timelines that you can click on to get more details. All of these have gone through the curriculum review process that we developed together as a team, and principals and senior admin had a chance to kind of give us feedback all about that process, and it's all based on DESE guidelines. If you can go to the next slide, please. And then to do some follow-up on the math community survey we had from the Math Curriculum Council, Math Curriculum Review Committee, one of them is that I know that all of you wanted to know how many people have outside help for math. So one of the questions was, we asked, does your student attend or receive any math support or enrichment outside of school? And you can see that 72.2% parents said yes. The biggest percentage, 33.3%, was private tutoring for support. And then second was Russian School of Math. And you can see we had 205 responses. If you go to the next slide, please.
No, correct?
I'm sorry?
72%.
72%.
So it says 72%. The red is the.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I apologize.
I was like, it's the opposite.
Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you. I apologize. I don't have mine in color, so I apologize. Sorry about that. And then two of the other questions I thought that you'd be interested in. What attributes of a curriculum resource do you think are the most important? And we took this to heart in our curriculum review committee. The first choice was rich in rigor and student discourse. And that was 83.4%. And the second one was clear and logical scope and sequence. So everything that we were looking at, we kept those thoughts in mind. Another question we asked, Holliston Public Schools is currently researching the leveling of advanced courses. We understand that it's essential our district gathers and provides information to the community regarding leveling. Please tell us what you'd like to know more about in the future. So now we're taking this information, if you go to the next slide, and this next information, we found patterns in that survey. And I'm not going to go over all of those because you guys can see those, but there is more information that's wanted all about levels and leveling, and I'm going to get to that in a second. There was a really wide range of child's math experience in the classes and the grades. Remember, this is K through 12. And then they had additional thoughts, anything that they wanted to add. And one thing that stood out to us that we really took to heart in our curriculum review committee, one thing a lot of people said was curriculum resources should be chosen to meet needs of all students. They wanted us to consider special ed students and also English language learners. So as we were reviewing resources, we definitely looked to see if they had those resources so the teachers didn't have to dig as much, that the resources were readily available. So now what are we going to do with all of this? So you can go to the next slide. So now what we're going to do in the fall, as we discussed earlier, we're going to form an after-school math ed study group. And what that will consist of, who that will consist of, principals, math teachers, special ed, administration and teachers, district math curriculum coordinator, building math coordinators, assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction. In that committee, we've modeled this off of other school districts that have recently done this. We'd be doing case study research. So what do I mean by that? Is looking at actual students, blacking out their names, and seeing what they were able to access at school and what supports there were in those classes. We'd be looking at subgroup performance during using multiple data sources, seeing how they progressed if they took this class, what were they able to achieve. Examine curriculum and instructional effectiveness at all levels, how we're communicating that out. We're going to research and provide more information to the community And then we would regularly report out to the school committee on progress with a final recommendation at the end of next year to institute that following year. This is very much modeled after the Equity Steering Committee, and also we really looked at what other districts were doing around us.
So what is the goal of this after-school math ed study group?
So we would come with doing all of this research and bring it back to make presentations to all of you, so we can come up with decisions, what we would do in the following year.
Recommendations.
Research on what? Recommendations on what? I'm just, what is?
So different levels, how levels impact people, how levels don't impact, I mean, like all of that, right?
So
Advantages, disadvantages.
Are you studying the impact of having leveled math courses at the high school as well
Yes.
as the middle school?
Yes, absolutely.
In an effort to, are you contemplating de-leveling math classes at the high school?
We're not contemplating anything now.
Right.
We're contemplating putting the group together, so what we'd like to do is at the end of the year be able to give you a timeline of when they would meet. I actually suggested to Joni that I think it would be great if we have the team configured by the end of the year, if they know the timeline ahead. Maybe we could offer some research time in the summer where we could actually work together and do some of the research, get some of the data
So
together.
the scope of the group includes looking at leveling at high school classes and
Yes.
not just evaluating the leveling?
Yes.
Okay.
It's
And I think
also-
what Ann was saying about Algebra 1, I think there are many of us in this room that would like to see a rigorous algebra program at grade 8 offered to the majority of children. I think that you'd have a lot of
So
support for that.
if you think the majority of you do that, would you agree that it would take several years to implement that, since we've moved away from a system where we provided more math in 7th grade, building up to 8th grade? So it would take more than 1 year to implement, correct?
Well, I think it depends on what we decide, because there would be stages. I'm sure there would be, because it's the adjustment period. But I feel like we should be able to make a decision for what we would offer in 8th grade for the following year. And then if we decide to add levels back at 7th grade, yes, there's going to be some transition time, but I don't think you should be taking a gap year. I mean, I think you should be implementing it all at once.
And I agree with you on that. So I guess my thought is there any issue with, while you continue to study this, adding more math back into 6th and 7th grade so that those 8th graders might just be ready for your recommendation next year, which is covering all of algebra? Because my concern here is we've taught less math in the 1920 year, the 21-22, the 22-23, the 23-24. We're contemplating this for another year, 24-25. If we use 25-26 as an additional transition year, and this has gone on for several years. So I guess what is the harm in using the next 3 months within the math review curriculum committee to look at how we could add standards in 7th grade should we then decide to move forward enhancing 8th grade?
So I'm not sure what you're thinking that we're not doing. I mean, you're talking
I'm not
about
following
levels.
either.
I believe you're talking about levels, but the standards are the grade 7 and 6 standards.
Right, they're teaching the
You
standards.
just brought up you'd like to see all, I think I understand this, you'd like to see all of 8th grade have access to Algebra 1, and not like the pre-algebra we're teaching now, but the standards that include all of Algebra 1. And I guess my question is, how would you do that if you're also needing to teach kids Math 6, Math 7, Math 8, DESI standards? And I guess what I would think is that in 7th grade, we'd be hitting some of the Math 8 standards if we were contemplating being able to provide a full year of Algebra 1 in 8th grade in 25-26.
But I think until the group makes the recommendation of what they want to offer and whether we're adding levels back or not, you can't make that adjustment that fast. I would love to see it. I mean, if we've been able to do this work at the beginning of the year and have more input that way, you could. But teachers learning a new curriculum at the same time, whole new materials and training with that.
I'm just confused because it seems like, well, so first of all, I thought that these questions were to be answered this year by the current math curriculum committee, but it seems like due to the necessity of trying out a new materials, that took precedence. But from what I understand, that you have the new materials now, and so seeing that it's only March, does it make sense to utilize the already oiled math committee that exists to talk about some of this stuff now in preparation for next year. I do worry the same things as Dawn and as Ms. Canoni outlined, that we're kicking the can, and more kids are just falling behind. And as far as like not feeling comfortable trying to make any decisions without another year of a committee meeting, it seems like we were able to make these changes quickly as a result of COVID, when we did switch into, okay, we need to create this Algebra 1 Part 2 to make up for the stuff the folks miss in 8th grade and blah, blah, blah. And like, you know, those decisions can be made by a smaller group of, you know, very knowledgeable folks that have, you know, teachers that have been in the system for a long time and done this curriculum work, math coaches and so forth, in order to not do any drastic changes or make any, you know, big leveling decisions, but trying to set ourselves up so that we can do this as soon as possible in order to get algebra in 8th grade.
So from my understanding, so 5th graders going into 6th grade. Mm-hmm. Currently we have the 6th graders being taught the 6th grade standards from that. But what we try to do is squeeze that down so that by the end of 6th grade we start teaching some of the 7th grade standards. And then in 7th grade, they've already started taking 7th grade standards. And so by the end of 7th grade, they're taking even more sort of the 8th grade
They're
standards.
able to do some more pre-algebra.
Potentially setting themselves up to do Algebra 1, or at least start, because it may take several years, but at least we're getting the ball rolling. So it's not teaching anything different than is being taught right now in middle school. It's just accelerating the process.
It's accelerating. And how can I say this? Like, every other district, like, covers all the standards, but chooses to focus on the most important standards, right? So that, like, if there's something that...
Power standards.
Yeah. So if there's some very minor thing that needs to be cut in order to get more of those important pre-algebra ones in, then maybe you don't teach, like, absolute value inequalities on a number line or something, because it's not a prerequisite for other skills. I know people don't know what I'm talking about, except probably does. It's not necessarily a prerequisite for other skills. It's blah, blah, blah. Like, the priority isn't covering every single standard to the letter. The priority is giving the most kids access to the most education.
So the curriculum review, math curriculum review is done, right? We have a recommendation from them?
Well, the thing is, though, the rest of the time, we're going to be concentrating on what PD we need, what training we need. So the main purpose of a curriculum review team is to look at gaps we have, what in our current resources that we use, and analyzing and figuring out what curricular resource is best for that community.
So
I think we're talking about pacing, though, is what I'm hearing from you. That you're looking for us to adjust the pacing, if that's something that could be done in a timely manner, and I don't want to be able to answer that for everyone.
It's the pacing, but it's also, as Ms. Coney pointed out, DESE has an entire site devoted to accelerating mathematic instruction, and it includes something like 8 or 9 different programs that are free access to high-quality core instructional mathematical materials in order to do that. So the outline's somewhat there. So I'm just wondering, could the committee, between March and June, look at that and build into our current or next year's 6th and 7th grades some of that accelerated material, and all of them. And if we get to a place next year where you say, no, we don't want to teach algebra to all 8th graders come 25, 26, no harm, no foul. They've just learned some extra math. But why can't we start to build a little extra into those
So my
years?
concern is, I hear what you guys are saying, we're doing a big ask of the math teachers for next year because they're getting used to a whole new math curriculum. So not only...
Would that be the time to do this because they're getting used to a whole new math curriculum? Like, so we have 3 months sort of left in the year. They're going to be looking at different PD. They're going to be looking at a whole bunch of things. Could they also look at maybe the pacing of it and come to us in June, or some of us in June, with a sort of a report or an update on sort of what their thinking is, and not necessarily even a recommendation, though if they want to make a recommendation, they can. I just think all along, I've been under the impression, I think most of the committee's been under the impression, that we were going to get some sort of recommendation on, not so much leveling, but at least the curriculum and where we want to sort of be exiting 8th grade and getting into high school.
So if there is a way for the teachers, as they're getting trained in the new math materials, to incorporate that, I think we're more than willing to do so. I don't know if it's realistic for us to ask teachers to now redo their maps and pace. That seems like a lot to ask, but I
ask them if they're willing.
That's what I'm saying.
Curriculum materials. Math and pacing are always different if you're modeling your.
Which is why I think that would be the time to adjust as they're
But they
getting
haven't
the
had a
training.
chance to look at any of that. You see what I'm saying?
But we're putting maps above kids. I mean, that's sort of like.
I don't.
Not
I
at
just completely
all.
disagree with you. I'm just saying they also have to. They're learning the materials and they have to adjust the pacing at the same time. That's a reasonable ask, but I don't think they can have it all figured out by
Right.
June. Is all I'm trying to say.
But you've also
It would
offered
be
that
able to
those
adjust as
maps are
they go.
living documents, and they change over time. But beyond that, many of our very talented math instructors at the middle school were still here in 2019 to 20 and before, and they've done this before. So this is actually what they might have done for 10, 15, 20 years until we changed it in 2021. Yeah.
We do have a lot of new teachers, so I personally, as a teacher of math myself, and I actually, as a special educator, co-taught algebra in 8th grade, and that was very successful. And I think if we're going to shift to all or most kids getting algebra, I would want to see more co-taughts offered to help support the students that need additional support, which is an adjustment. Also, if we go back to leveling, that's a whole different ballgame, because then we have to figure out, do we have the right supports in place to get there and to avoid tracking the entire day. So that's why we have to have that conversation next year. The pacing part, I'm sure there can be some pacing and adjusting as they go. But if we're looking at equity, we also have to have teachers, they would have to have time to work together.
Correct.
So that they are trying to stay aligned together, because otherwise now you're creating more inequity, because one teacher might be more comfortable and be able to move it along by themselves, and a brand new teacher might not be able to. That's where they would need the time.
But that could be incorporated into PD, right?
I think we could do some of that, yes.
Well, the PD this year, the last PD that we're having this year would be dedicated to the companies coming out and presenting about how you use that specific resource.
Yeah,
Right.
I think though, I don't think we could have it all to you by June. I'm suggesting that. We could certainly, as we build in them getting trained on the resource
Correct.
next year, have those
Correct.
conversations and adjust as we go.
That could
I
be
don't
one
think
of
that's
those things
unreasonable.
that happens as we go,
So
right?
adjusting as we go is fine. Like, I'm not one of those people that needs these detailed, beautiful maps with all these awesome links to this and that in June as a school committee member.
I'm not even talking about the.
Like, I just want the teachers to be able to have that.
at all.
So a word about equity, because that's obviously a very important issue. But equity doesn't necessarily mean teaching to the lowest common denominator in case someone hasn't had that experience in acceleration. Equity in math, to me, and this is, as you know, my life's work. I'm not just some Joe off the street talking about this. Equity in math doesn't necessarily mean the same for everyone. It means equal access. So what that means is, with the leveling we have now, or more robust leveling, it means that we make sure that underrepresented groups in the STEM and math courses have equal access, that we make sure that we are doing fair recruiting and recommending amongst all groups, and that everyone has equal access. Not everyone wants to take AP Music Theory. Not everyone has the experience to take AP Music Theory, but that doesn't mean it's not an equitable course, so we can't offer it. You know what I mean? It's the same.
To your point, I mean, that's part of something that committee will look at, because how can somebody get into, like we're talking about math, is how are students being made aware, like, of the AP math classes? How are we communicating that out? How are we communicating out the expectations, the rigor? Are we allowing everybody to take it type thing?
I think
So be
your
looking at all of that.
I 100% agree with what
Right.
you're saying,
So-
but
Right.
we have not been having equitable access, and so that needs to be fixed. I mean, I think
Right.
that's part of this conversation as to the why, and taking the time to do it well so that we are opening doors and not closing
And
doors.
that's a function of tracking too. So if we kind of constantly linked like science and math and English all together, and I think that's historically, if you got into that track, then you stayed. And there was no way for you to branch out of that. So then you were in this team that didn't have that track, and it just, that's where it gets hard.
When we're talking about math, though, we can't just limit it to math for that
Right,
reason.
exactly.
And so
It has to be all
if we,
across the board.
if the community decides they do add more levels back, then how do we avoid tracking in other subjects too? So then you might have to cross-team. I mean, there's a whole
But
other
we're
thing.
just saying that the problem is bigger than just math doesn't mean you still shouldn't just try to make some adjustments to math to get things started.
So I think
So-
we're, I
bigger
think
this
we're all in
problem
agreement.
seems, the more it seems like it's not going to go into effect until like the class of 2036.
So I
like,
have to say, I don't feel like here has disagreed with anything you're saying.
Right.
The only thing we suggested is having talked to other districts that took a full year and a half to 2 years to make any shifts in leveling. That was the only part we asked to really do our due diligence in getting the data dashboard going so that we can really, whatever decision is made for that, we do it well. However, the adjusting and getting pacing to get ready for those decisions, I don't see, that's not something we're opposed to.
Right.
So that's something we can work on this year.
Yes.
Can we talk to the math review committee and see if they, what their thoughts are, if they can come to us with?
I'm not sure how many meetings we have left. If we have meetings left that we can fit in, absolutely. We can talk about how they can do that. I think it might have to be, though, looking at the new resources and looking at how you can combine different standards within that specific resource. I think is more going to be what you're going to have to look at.
Yeah, and I think that some summer work could be offered, I mean, which we're planning on
Right.
doing anyhow.
Right.
I think math is such an important thing right now when we've had such a lag in the last purchase of curriculum materials.
And well, I think
But I
you,
also think it's going to impact some of the other decisions that the district needs to make that are even beyond that. So I think I don't feel comfortable waiting until everything is perfect.
yeah.
I think, because I think some of the stuff is, we kind of need.
I think we're
Yeah.
agreeing with you.
No,
The only thing we're asking you to, is if you're going to shift levels, that we wanted to spend.
we're not asking to shift.
That's the only thing we're asking you to
Right.
consider.
I guess, just to be very clear, I'm not asking to shift levels without reviewing this more. I'm comfortable with that. However, I am really worried about how long the transition will take, because from my understanding, from your curriculum maps, from the DESE standards, is there is a Math 6, a Math 7, a Math 8, and then there is an Algebra 8. And we are asking basically for 4 years of standards to now be covered by those kids in middle school, or the ones that, will come to you in 8th grade next year. My real concern is that if we spend another year with a brand new committee looking at this, we come up with a recommendation, that the phase-in, the transition period could be 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, that this is going to take time to build back in. So why not build in more math next year? Go with the idea that every kid can take algebra in the following year and build more math into
When
6
you
and
say
7.
more math, I'm hearing more time for math. Because that's, what do you mean more math? You mean adding, pacing and putting more standards in different levels, right?
More standards.
Another reason to
Where-
level
And
it.
fine tuning the standards to selecting the most important ones.
We're saying we're open to that.
I
So
know,
I don't.
I feel like we've
we're not-
agreed with you the whole time. I'm
Right.
not sure.
Well, except
Oh,
that Dr.
okay,
Bernard
I'm
is sort of
confused.
pushing back as far as whether the review committee could look at it to make some recommendations for how to implement that.
Right.
And did you have something you wanted to add?
I just want to, real quickly, I cannot speak to the 6th, 7th, 8th grade, except that I love working with them and they work really hard and they're awesome teachers. Except that currently, right now, we're implementing, so I taught 3 new classes in the fall, and right now I'm teaching 3 new classes in the spring with the new curriculum. And we do exactly what Amanda's saying, is we look at the power standards, right? Like you look at you even said absolute, whatever, piecewise function. Yeah, piecewise functions. Like I'm not going to sit there and spend time on my piecewise functions when I have other things I need to do. So that's a natural thing that happens. But I do think that any professional development that we could get this summer would really help us. But I do think we have to look at power standards. And even myself as a teacher, there's things I like to teach, and sometimes you have to say, you know what, I can't teach that. But I think it's just part of putting in a new curriculum. But
I think they can be done in conjunction. I think this is the perfect time.
Right.
but I do think it would be a great opportunity for the current math curriculum review to have an opportunity to at least discuss it. Again, I can't speak for the 6th, 7th, and 8th at all.
And we're not saying that maybe it's just seen as too big a lift by the curriculum review committee, and that could be the answer. But at least we've posed it. They've had a chance. The people on the ground have had a chance to look at it to see whether it's possible. and make a recommendation to us and the administration.
And I don't know if it should be limited, to be honest with you, to the curriculum review. I feel like this is something that should be discussed more at grade level meetings.
I
Because it's going to impact all teachers.
agree.
It's not going to impact, sure. In elementary, it's all teachers.
Right.
Unless they're the team and they're teaching.
Right.
But do you think
And
it's
I'm
possible?
not sure what you would look for reporting back, because just to go to Ann's point, you can start to look now at what standards could be grouped together, your power standards, but that's going to change, as Ann was talking about, as you're looking at your new curricular resources.
It's really about building time.
So you
for them
can
to do
say
that.
something now which could totally be altered once you, as a teacher and as a grade level, like have that in your hand, and now you're having thoughtful discussions. Hey, this looks like more like it would go better with this. Why don't we put this with this? You know, so we could come back, but it could be totally different, you know, the teachers need to be able to grapple with the resources. They're the experts and determine what naturally would go together better. And they're not going to know that because we don't physically have the
I think
resources.
what you're hearing is maybe that we'd like to just, maybe if possible, hear from them by the end of the year, as they've looked at some of this and grappled with it, to see if there's a potential for slight changes, tweaks, and
And it looks like from the data that you presented to us tonight about PD feedback, that those secondary teachers really liked just having that time to work with their course partners and their grade level teams. And those conversations are what I assume are happening among teachers all the time. Like, oh, did you, like, I noticed like there haven't been any questions on stem and leaf plots on the 7th grade MCAS in years. Is that something maybe we want to spend less time on because blah, blah, blah? Like, teachers are always having those conversations about what are they spending more time on, what are they spending less time on.
But to go to your point, I think it's better to have it done at grade level grade level meetings as opposed to limiting just to the curriculum review committee.
So maybe between now and the end of the year, would it make sense to have a PD, like for grade level teams, to look at like what are those pre-algebra standards that should be incorporated into the grade 7 curriculum next year? What are those pre-grade 7 standards that could be incorporated into grade 6 next year? And what from the full Algebra 1 that the current 8th grade Algebra 1 does not get to could be incorporated in here, maybe in addition to, maybe in place of things that are less important.
I don't know if they have level of PD at this point. I mean,
The last day is with the companies coming out, I know that, and the other day is building based. I mean,
I think this is why I'm going to talk about the calendar next year. This is why we're trying to talk about full-day PD, so that we can really give that alignment piece, because part of the problem we've had is when we have half-days, each building is doing their own thing, and you can't get, if you're trying to get all the math teachers together, you can't do that on a half-day PD because they're all at different times. So,
but the problem is that's next year, so, I mean, that's, the further delay. I mean, so where can we end up here so that we can sort of maybe get some sort of sense for what's possible?
I think where we already agreed that we would potentially use some of our summertime if people wanted to come together, because we're already planning some of that summer work, that we could have some of that pacing discussed and then start rolling it out. But I don't think you can adjust the whole year, because as they learn the materials, they'll be adjusting as they go,
Right.
so that hopefully they'll be able to have that pacing implemented at the same
I do
time.
think it might make sense if we're all sort of in agreement that we'd like to work towards the vision of offering a full Algebra 1 in 8th grade, that maybe we do a little backwards planning and say, like, let's have a goal that, like, in 25, 26, those 8th graders in that year will be able to take a full Algebra 1, and then sort of work backwards from there.
Yeah, and I think you're saying separate from the leveling part of it, if we're just trying to make sure that we have a robust offering of Algebra 1 in 8th grade.
Is it to everyone?
and
Is
we're
it to one
planning that
class
part
cohort?
already.
Is it to? Because otherwise, I mean, I think you guys both all do an excellent job, and the curriculum committee has done an excellent job. But I've been pushing for this since I've been on the committee, which was 3 years ago, like 10 years almost up, and we've been having these conversations for 3 years. I'd like a date as to when Algebra 1 in 8th grade will be offered.
Is that something you can put to discussion in the next month to 2 months with the math committee and come back to us with a...
It sounds like we're already, I don't want to speak for everybody, it sounds like the school committee wants that to happen. So if that's the ask right now, then we can come back with the second part of the conversation, whether leveling or changing that. If that is the goal, but I'm not opposed, I don't think the principals are opposed, it's just how do we get there?
So someone make a motion.
I would like to make that motion, Dan.
To the motion.
I move that the school committee recommend that we work towards offering a full Algebra 1 course in 8th grade for the 2025-26 school year.
Any further discussion on this?
What does that mean exactly?
It covers the full algebra standards. Right now,
They can go to geometry in 9th grade.
we are, at best, we're covering half of them.
We haven't talked about the change in schedule. However, that's the same year that the new high school schedule may hopefully be implemented.
Many things, but yeah.
And that makes sense because it is, I don't like block scheduling, but it is what allows folks to take Algebra 1, Part 2, and then still finish geometry in freshman year, and that may not be possible.
I think we're very well aligned with our strategic plan and the pre-work we've done with our equity audit and our curriculum reviews and getting the cycle back in. We have to get those purchases for materials. We've been behind, and we've told you that. That's been my goal, and it's painfully slow when you identify things as you enter a district. Some of these things that I saw right away, I've wanted to, but some of it was resistance, and change takes a long time. But I think I hope we all agree that we have a lot of data to support the things that we need to do, and giving a full year of getting to that point will put us in really good shape for that following year when we have to make these changes that we've already identified.
And I think
are
that's
going to happen
doable,
somehow.
because then the teachers can grapple with a new resource, right? And figure out.
All of them haven't even received the resources.
No.
We will not even be able to order until after July 1.
We had to get the money first.
Right,
We haven't even looked at that.
correct.
Only a small
I
group.
just want to be clear that
Correct.
it's not like everybody's just sitting on their hands going,
Right.
well, we can't look at it until June. We don't actually physically
Right.
have the resources to look at.
Correct.
You're online
So,
too, when we do purchase.
I just think
Right, but we can't expect teachers to do that on their own time.
Right.
I mean,
Correct.
that's not fair.
Yeah.
I do just need to correct you. The curriculum will, assuming town meeting supports it, will be able to be ordered on May 14th.
But we won't get it.
I'm just saying that, but you don't need to wait for the new fiscal year to order capital,
Okay.
because it's, there's plenty of capital in the account.
But I don't know how long it will take.
No, but I'm just saying, don't wait till July 1st.
A lot of it is online resources, right?
Sorry?
A lot of it is.
No, a
not.
lot of, like in the lower grades, K through 5, it's like physical teacher,
Yeah.
like books and
What
manuals.
about in the middle school and high school? Is it digital?
You guys help me out here.
People are just using online.
Yeah,
But not every teacher has access right now.
correct.
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
Everybody has it.
So they'd be able to look at it now, but right.
I can't speak to the middle, I'm not
Right.
saying anything.
Well, the middle school is still piloting, so they're not even sure if they want to go with which way they want to go.
But in the same way that the math and science curriculum coordinator helped coordinate the implementation of the new science materials in third grade and what we did over at Miller, once it becomes available after May 14th and it's in a digital format, is that something that they could?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And we could ask the principals if we could use current department time at the high school or curriculum time at the other schools, right? Absolutely. But you have to understand, you don't magically, well, for the high school, they'd be able to have resources right away. But even if you order it, I don't know what date
I
you
don't
just
know how
said,
fast.
May 20th, it could not get here maybe until, I don't know. I don't know how long it would
And I'm
take,
sure
right?
there'll be teachers that will be excited, but I also,
Right.
this is not something we can expect them to just do on their own time if they
Correct.
don't have time built in for the ones that haven't piloted.
Okay, so we have no, we did not. So, all
What
those
was
in
the
favor?
motion again? I'm sorry. The 2020, which year?
25, 26, the 8th grade class will be offered a full Algebra 1.
So not next school year.
Not next
Not
year.
the following school year.
That's why I didn't
I thought
get
that was
myself
the
straight.
goal
Yeah.
anyway.
That was what we were hoping to do.
It is, but I
what
would
Denise
like
is
that in
asking is-
writing.
You wanted
And then
public.
are we ready to vote?
Yeah.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay, that carries 6-0. Before we move on, the one thing I would like to say is on the after-school math ed study group, is that I still think that is going to need to happen. I would really like a document describing the sort of the goals and what the deliverables and the timeline of it are before we exit.
That was the plan.
June.
I think I said that a little while ago when we were talking about
Did I miss that?
I may not have given you all the details,
Okay.
but my plan with Joni is that we were going to map out what the timeline and how to put dates ahead of time so that people that want to sign up for it would know ahead of time, and then hopefully give them some paid time during the summer to do some pre-work together.
But I think Dan means not just days of meeting.
No, I want very,
that what we're going to do.
concrete
Yeah, the
sort
action.
of. This is what we're looking at. This is what our goals to analyze are, and this is what our plan deliverable is. So, like saying, I want very specifically, if we're looking at leveling, then looking at leveling. What does leveling mean? X, Y, and Z. These are the sort of just a document that really describes like, or details what the point of this group is. Because I think there was a lot of confusion over what the Math Curriculum Review Committee was supposed to do, and there was nothing in writing about what it was. And so I think we had discussions, different things were heard or said, and some confusion about that. So if we have an actual document, and then we can look at that and ask for either changes or.
Can I just ask you though, there has been a curriculum review document for years posted on our website. On the teaching and learning, there's been a document.
For the Math Curriculum Review?
No, for all curriculum reviews, what happens in a curriculum review.
Okay, but
We were told different. We were under the impression that the curriculum review that is about to come to a close would answer questions X, Y, and Z, and then it ended up selecting the materials.
Yeah, we talked about
And that's fine, we've talked about this, I don't need to bring this up again, but this is why.
I just want in writing what the point of this this after-school math ed study group is, and you've done some things that case study research. Okay, what is the point of that? Just discussing what this is basically it's a working document to work off of to sort of lead the study group in its work, but also so that we up front can see what the plan is and make either any suggestions or requests that certain items be changed, and so that we have it memorialized that this is what the plan is and what the
We're with you.
Okay.
And that's what Jenny and I got.
So can we?
It kind of goes back to that community forum we had last June. We put out an FAQ when we worked with administration. It said, what's going on with math levels at Rams? And we represented to the community during the 23-24 school year, Dr. Menard and the Math Curriculum Review Committee will look into the middle school and high school programs of studies, including how to most effectively allow the most students the best access to math that suits their needs, and that we would make recommendations. And then we also indicated we would do a survey, we'd have another math forum, and I know we did do that in December. So I think it's just part of the transparency and accountability and making sure. I think what I'm hearing is this will go on for another year with a new committee, but we did put that out there last June. So I just want to I don't think there's confusion as to what the committee was supposed to do. I think that was the original intent.
I'm going to remind you all, though, that we also had a NEASC survey being done, a full year of how far back that started. But last year was when they came in and did the whole NEASC study, and then we were getting those recommendations that were just shared not too long ago. We also had the equity presented to you. So it's hard to not take any of that stuff and make that part of the decision.
We knew those were going to be going into all of this, right?
I'm not disagreeing, but I'm saying some of the things that we were being asked to do, people then also got hesitant when they started getting new information from the equity audit, for example. So when you have multiple things going on that could change and alter a decision, sometimes you have to back up and look at the other pieces to the puzzle. So yes, it would have been lovely if we could have just done all of that, but then I think some of the things that were coming out with the equity audit and the NEAS report may have altered those decisions and had to start.
Also, one of the things in the math ed study group working documents could be working with the equity steering group to ensure that that's all. So again, and so can we, the first meeting in June, can we have that as the date to have that document sort of available?
Yep, and that's Joni and I, we've talked about that this week when we were getting ready for this, about how I really want to spell out a timeline and what we're going to do.
But the timeline is something definitely that the working group should have. I don't really care about the timeline except for the fact that I want, by the end of the year, certain deliverables.
But that's the point, the timeline of when you're going to get things, if you know.
Right, right, okay.
What you're going to
We all agree on the same thing.
I think we are. We're kind of beating the horse on it.
Can we move on?
I had another question.
Okay.
If we could go back to, I think it's slide 10 on here. It's basically the breakdown on the math survey. And I know noticed that what people questioned the most on that was how students get into leveled classes, right? So that was the highest percentage had asked about that. So what have we done to address that? Because I know this survey went out back in December, and kids will be selecting classes. What have we done to address how students get into level classes at the high school? Like making sure that people know how to do that.
We talked about the communication has to be better. I will connect with Principal List to see what was communicated out. I'm not sure.
Okay. And then I guess when you taking that survey as a parent, it allowed parents and students to input it. So this is why I thought like the raw data is really important, because of the 63.4% that said I want more information about how to get into level classes. How many of those were students and how many were parents? Because that makes a big difference, right? So I'd be really concerned if 50% or more of those participants that answered were students in high school saying they don't know how to get into it, right? So who are we answering that question for? And then what are we doing to improve that now? And that's too important of an issue to wait until another committee next year.
Yep. And I can have him actually, after he and I talk, to make sure that he's talking to the counselors, how they're doing that too, how they're embedding that in there.
And then most importantly also our kids coming into high school too, right, who are here next week getting that information. I believe those information sessions that student reps pointed out as early as next week, right?
Because I think the part that I've been concerned about is that we're not always having children champion for themselves. I really personally feel I would rather not have a parent come forward to overrule a decision. I would rather the student be part of that conversation, because I've seen situations where a parent might want something for their child, and the child may not want the same thing, and then their effort and motivation isn't there. So when a student can get their student voice and champion for themselves, they're far more likely to succeed as well. And I don't know that we have had the opportunity to embed that into the practice.
Anything else on the teaching and learning update?
No, I just want to say thank you. Like this was a survey that we asked for, and I really appreciate seeing these results. I didn't comment on the tutoring stuff, even though that's like been a big issue for me. So I'm hopeful. I'm sure that this will be part of the conversation next year as well. So I'm really glad that you've chosen to look at this. Speaking of equity.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Only 15 minutes behind schedule. No, this is important stuff. And we started 10 minutes late, so we're actually good. So superintendent, central office update, Dr. Pesca.
Yeah, I'll do some quick things. I know the students already talked about the unified basketball, but it was so wonderful to see. I've attended other unified basketball games, but to get them to play with the varsity, and I thought there were some JV athletes there too, but I could be wrong. And the amount of participation from the community to attend that was great. Wednesday night, last night, I went to the town hall discussion where Mr. Vernay was part of facilitating a really insightful discussion on where the roots of anti-Semitism and white nationalism and how these things have inflamed white nationalism. So it was educational for me, and some of those things that, I think it's just a really good discussion point as we try to work on anti-bias and racist work, and then seeing how we can take some of the work that's been done in the community already and combine that with the Holliston Coalition Against Hate and Bias is where we want to try to intertwine this work as well.
Do you know, was that taped? I would have liked to have gone, but it was
on Zoom.
It was on Zoom.
Oh, Sarah, you were on. That's right. I
I was
saw
on
you.
the first half. I don't, they didn't make me.
I don't remember seeing if it was being
so I'm not
recorded, but
sure.
I'll check with Mr. Vernay on it. It was
It was very good.
It might not have been taped because of the confidentiality piece.
Yeah.
Because the people in the
We did
room
do
had to really
breakout
kind of
rooms.
agree to use this as a.
No, I wish I could have.
I don't think it was for that reason, Jan.
I wasn't able to do it, so I was just wondering.
But the conversations were great, and the table talks was great, so I would recommend, the part 3, I think it's part 3 coming. And then on March 23rd, the Athletic Hall of Fame is coming up, so that'll be a great opportunity at the Doubletree in Milford on Saturday night. I shared with you, Dan and Dawn, but I didn't send it out to everybody because it wasn't on the agenda, but it was really just informational if you want to share it out about the impetus for the science capital amount that we put on there. So you can share that with everybody else. I just didn't want to. Sure. It was last minute putting it there. And then I mentioned the Holliston Coalition meeting is April 20th. On Tuesday, the entire administrative team was at Miller Elementary School doing our walkthroughs, which was we love doing this as a team because it's always, for me, having taught multiple grades in elementary and middle school, and spent a lot of time in high school classrooms as a curriculum director. A lot of our administrators are always in the same building. For them to be able to get out at other grade levels is always eye-opening. And I think what we heard a lot about from our administrators, especially at our high school level, the things that our elementary teachers do, because they have the whole range of students in the classroom to differentiate, and how successful they are at it, and how do we make that. I mean, yes, as you go up, it's harder when the kids are getting more content-driven, but at the same token, there's a level of differentiation that can happen at all levels, and they love seeing the enthusiasm from the students and staff. We also just wanted to, I think, Dan, you already signed up, but on one of the hats I wear is the co-president for Tri-County Superintendent Roundtable, and I'm hosting with tech support. We're doing a legislative breakfast on March 28th. And we already have Senator Spilka's representative, Karen Edelman Foster, is attending for Senator Spilka. James Arena DeRosa is attending as well. I know that Joni and I think Dan, you already signed up to go, so I will share out the presentation after it's complete, just for the rest of you that may not get to see it, but we really need to hammer in the financial needs that we have, not just in Holliston, but statewide. And we're all feeling the impact of the changes since COVID and the funding cliff that a lot of places are on as well. Thank you.
There's a great article in the Globe just
yes.
about how many districts were getting less than 1% increase in Chapter 70, which is almost over 50% of districts, which we were part of, and then another 40% or something are getting between 1% and 5%, and then very few districts are getting sort of meaningful amounts. So.
Yeah, it's going to be a couple of years, I think.
Okay. Dr. Bernard?
Yes, hopefully they're having a great Math Palooza tonight. It's at the elementary schools. Unfortunately, it's the same night as tonight, or else I would have been there having fun with them. So hopefully parents and students have fun together exploring different hands-on opportunities. And I'm thrilled to announce that Joe Hicks was able to write a successful grant. We have been awarded the Genocide Educational Grant of $31,150. And it's used to partner with an organization called Facing History and Ourselves. And they will provide teachers with PD over the course of the school year, 3 separate sessions, and then follow-up coaching, a speaker fee. There'll be 8th grade ELA and social studies teachers and others. This year, though, we are able to have Holocaust survivor presentations. In 8th grade on 4/8, Kitty Preston is coming. In 9th and 10th grade on 5/17, Janet Applefield is coming. And finally, for 11th grade on 3/27, which is coming up, for our 11th and 12th graders is Kitty Preston. So we have a lot of things going on. So thanks to Mr. Hicks that was able to get that for us.
Great. That's a big grant. Speaking of grants, Mr. Ruday?
Just a couple of quick updates on capital things that are happening. I signed the contract this week for the auditorium, the metal sheathing that's going on the outside for the auditorium wall. Total of $469,300 and something dollars for that piece of the project. I met with a playground contractor with regards to the Miller Playground. The solution that's currently there will shortly no longer be part of ADA code. So we'll see what the cost of the new solution will be in conjunction with, I want to see it somewhere else as well. Once he gives me the price, I'll do that. I met with him on Monday, last Friday actually I met with him. So I haven't seen a quote from him yet. Also for the playground behind Placentino Miller, the first and second grade playground, I have a price from one vendor with regards to trying to build a retaining wall to try to keep the playground chips from ending up in Factory Pond. So we're working on trying to improve that situation as well. The cost seems reasonable. There's a couple pieces I have to work out, and then we actually have to get 3 quotes. So that's it right now for our capital update. So.
Well, that is excellent news about the wall, because I know that people are anxious for it to stop raining in there.
It's a 4-week lead time on the material, and they'll install it when they get it. So we're actually hoping that the 4-week lead time is like 3 weeks and 2 days or something, because then it possibly could happen during April school vacation. So
That would be great.
So.
And awesome, yeah. All right. Personnel, we have nothing, so reports from the subcommittees. Communications.
So communication needs to schedule a meeting.
Okay. Policy.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yep.
We had one office hours at Coffee Haven this past Saturday, and we have, thank you, Cynthia, we have 2 more scheduled. So the next 2 are Thursday, March 21st, and the following Thursday, March 28th, which will be 7 to 8:30 on Zoom. We've advertised on some Facebook groups and in a newsletter, but I'll be posting again closer to the dates, so hopefully we'll get a big crowd. The purpose of these meetings is because it's budget season, so we wanted to give folks an opportunity to address issues that they see in the upcoming budget, but you can come and ask us any questions or talk about anything.
The first one was limited number of people, but very, a lot of engaging conversation.
Good.
Can I just add one thing I forgot? We are also, the principals and I are doing our second coffee hour on March 20th. I'll send out a reminder, but I sent that out. And then we're going to be planning a follow-up Zoom evening coffee hour of some sort, so that people that can't come during the day will do a Zoom one as well. That's all.
Budget.
To me.
Oh, so I'm sorry. I in my mind, I had called you and then.
And then you.
So, policy.
I was trying to defer to let Amanda fully answer. Our next meeting is March 21st, which is next Thursday at 4:15 in central office. Thank you, that's all I need to report.
Budget.
Budget. We had, our next meeting, I guess I'll start with that, is March 25th. And we had our meeting, on the 12th or the 13th this week? Was it yesterday?
So 13th.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
yes,
yesterday.
Just yesterday.
And we've started to talk about prioritization of the capital requests, right? We've already looked at those. And again, I think Mr. Boudet reported on a lot of it, just an update on the auditorium wall. We had been talking about other capital projects and the timelines for them, things like the high school track, the playgrounds, the auditorium lighting. We've gone through all of those, and then just additional discussions on the FY25 budget.
Yeah, so there are definitely many outstanding sort of unknowns left, but I just think that the community needs to know that we're in an incredibly difficult budget year, and an operational override to help fund that budget is very much on the table. There are a lot of moving pieces, and we certainly always look to ensure that we are being prudent with the taxpayers' dollars. But for a huge combination of reasons, this year is especially challenging, not just for the schools, but for the town as a whole. And so just want to be sort of forthcoming with that. We'll obviously have a lot more conversations to come about that, but it is it's definitely a serious consideration. And then Minnie is not here yet, but we haven't had a superintendent eval meeting. So
I think, Deanna, I was just going to request, since we had pushed the goals out further with the adjustments that were made, if we probably do need to readjust the timeline for when you would like me to submit evidence, so we could.
okay, we can talk with Minnie about that.
Okay.
The only thing would you still think that we could get it done? I guess, just before the elections.
I'm sure we can make it happen.
Yeah, that would be the only ask.
On my end, at least, I can't.
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
to put together a timeline.
Okay, so moving on to old business, we did the outdoor learning alliance at Rams. Is there anything to add on the collision? You touched upon that. Keith, I kept this on here just because I didn't know that it had sort of been closed out.
Got nothing.
Got nothing on the auditorium rental.
Yeah, the update is we have none.
Okay. And we're going to make a few adjustments tonight. We need to appoint a liaison to the to help with negotiations for the cafeteria workers, and Sarah has raised her hand to help that. I mean, raise your hands as volunteered. But you know, now that you successfully helped with her.
I can give you my notes.
And then I just for a variety of reasons with budget, the potential for an override negotiations, and then just some the fact that I do have a day job. I'm going to be stepping off the superintendent eval subcommittee, and Lisa's going to be taking my place, or I've asked Lisa to take my place. So that will also be part of the.
You have to vote on that.
Yeah.
Yes, that would be part of the motion. That would be part of the motion, is what I'm saying. So the motion would be to appoint Sarah as the liaison or the representative to the cafeteria workers collective bargaining unit, and to appoint Lisa in my stead to the superintendent evaluation subcommittee.
Moved by Dawn.
Second by Sarah.
All's in favor? Thank you very much. That carries 6-0. Dr. Garcia, do you want to walk us through the school calendar
I
update?
do. I don't know, do you need me to pull it up? Because I took the.
You can if you want. I go where you can pull it up.
Look at it this way.
Okay. So we were waiting we voted on the start date, and, go ahead.
Sorry, I know you're just starting, but just given our whole conversation around all the math issues and discussions around that, I'm wondering whether we can revisit doing, you had talked a couple of years ago about doing sort of like an academy and pushing sort of our professional development to the beginning of the year, even before school starts. I don't know if there's any appetite to discuss that. It was at all, but I just feel like maybe it would give some extra time for people to really explore and dive deeper into those and have that opportunity to work together around some of those issues and address some of them. But I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
I think we listened to the teachers when we took PD survey data in past years, and we adjusted. Well, there was an ask, for example, we had moved it to the second day of school for teachers, and that was a full day PD. And what we heard from teachers is that was a lot. And when I'm really trying to focus on my students, so that did not go over well. Okay. So then we shifted it to a Friday, which was a little bit better because they had a couple of days with their students. But even that, they were still feeling like that's a lot to digest early on. So we took that all in mind. And the other piece is, from principals we've heard when they're trying to do building-based PD, and the teachers have said they want to spread it out over multiple opportunities so that they can have time to do part one and start to implement and practice, and then they have if it's, especially when we're trying to do like with math, it's going to be a big focus next year. So they'll have to, as they move along and have follow-up training so that they can think, especially with this pacing possibility we're talking about. So I hear you, but we did use the PD Council survey and data to assess that. So if you look at the calendar, because let me just pull it up myself.
Schedule a little bit, maybe knock it out.
The opening day, we talked about on the 26th for teachers, and then the 27th, because I don't know, thank you, I have it in front of me. The 27th, we agreed that would be opening day for students, and I had talked about wanting it to be a half day, but I didn't really express the why. I think we're in full agreement that I proposed, and the union is agreeing with that as well. I proposed that I wanted that half day because I heard the struggles that we're dealing with, the state and federal government putting in more and more expectations and trying to fit it all in. So the first day will be a half day for students. Second half of that day, all of our teachers will have that day to just get all of their trainings out of the way rather than wait, because some we're spreading it out through the month. It's also better for us for kids when we're learning about, reminding about 51As and different things that we have to do. So we'll get that done. They'll sign off on it, and then they can move on. Paraprofessionals will do it on the 26th because they already have a half day built in on the 26th for that. And then that way gives kids a half day to transition back as well. What that means, though, is because we were adding that half day, we wanted to remove some of the other half days because we don't want to negatively impact teaching and learning. We want to get that time back. So we now are going to 180 days for students instead of the 181, but it doesn't change the length of the school year because it's still 185 for teachers with 5 days built into the contract. So we built in 4 full-day PDs. Again, when I talked about alignment with the teaching and learning discussion, pre-K to 12, what we kept finding is, as we're trying to do more rigorous training for our paraprofessionals, they get 12 hours. Poor Jess Beatty was really doing some wonderful training. She was bringing in an outside vendor, and the staff was excited about it. But when she tried to correlate 4 different schools at times, she had to end up canceling it, and then she had to recreate some of that herself. So anytime we can do it on full days, our plan would be to try to do like a half day of district, that we need district-wide training, and then the other half would focus on school-based training probably, but we haven't mapped it all out yet. But I do think this schedule will be a really good one for next year, given the content work that we're trying to do. And then the following year, we'll decide from there.
So, is there a question?
So I don't think you need to vote again. I really just want to do this for communication, and then we can get it posted up on the website so parents can see it as well, because you already voted on the beginning and end of the year.
My only thought is, I totally agree with the full-day PDs, but if we split and had one of those PDs as 2 half-days, does that get us to a final day of June 17th, just to build in a little more cushion? So if we had 2 snow days, we weren't moving to the 23rd? I'm just, it's just...
Well, then we'd be giving up, unfortunately, more PD time for staff, because we're already down, like...
It's time on learning.
Yeah.
I mean, you're taking away.
No, I think he's talking about on PD day, take half of the PD time away. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Or make 2 half-days. You would take away a little bit of... Well, no, you take away...
Take away time on learning.
Would you, though?
One
Because
full day versus
it's 1 full day versus 2 half-days?
I'm not sure what you said.
It's not going to change because you have 185 days. 185 days.
It wouldn't change. We still have to do 185 days. So if we end up making half-day PDs, then we do 181 for kids. It comes out the same, because we would be losing time on learning for kids if we didn't do it.
So a half-day counts as a half-day towards the...
No, we worry about hours. We have to do 990 hours at the high school, 900
So we're
hours
that
at the
close.
elementary.
So we're that close.
It's close enough that
They can't
it's...
change any more full days into half days.
Okay, I'm just trying, again, just if
Yeah.
there's any way to,
No, I see what you're saying.
Do we have to vote on this tonight?
no, we're not voting it out. We
You
voted.
already voted the
Start and end.
start and end, and then there's always opportunities to re-vote
Right.
if you...
Right,
But
there's
I
an
don't,
opportunity
I
to
don't
re-vote.
have any other ways to modify it, given all of the holidays. I mean, that's really
As
the
we come in on the
biggest driving
23rd. No one's going to want to do that. We'll roll it. We've had 1 snow day this year, so we just.
And somebody mentioned, I read in one of the survey things about why when we offer PD at the end of school, well, the purpose of PD is to be able to
Right, yeah.
implement and practice, and so if you get it on the last day of school, then you lose it all summer. It's pointless. We're just wasting time, and teachers aren't getting what they need, so.
Just doing summer curriculum
Yes.
during the school year.
That would be the
then.
only thing you could do, yeah.
Right, so that. All right, well.
And it's election year, so you have to take it.
Right, so the
that's-
fifth is.
Right.
That's why.
Yeah, that's the fifth.
It says
I know
PD
that's a
day, but
rough
it's because it's election,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. But it is a PD day.
Yes.
It is, but it's also the election, which is why we're doing it.
That's why it's in the
that
middle of the
day,
week
yeah.
and on a Tuesday.
That's why it's on a Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's just, as we go forward, continue to think if there's a way to,
Yeah, and the Christmas break is also complicated because
well, it's
you
for,
can't come in from the 23rd.
this year we had an incredibly short
know.
Christmas break in
So
this.
that's,
People complain with me, I'm just gonna say, you chose.
Yep.
and,
Yes.
I don't have a problem with it, that they added Juneteenth to the federal holidays. It's just if they let us put it on a different day of the week, it would help.
Yeah, no, but
It is what it
it-
is.
it-
Like
the day
July
is,
4th, put it on the
Right.
12th.
I know that.
okay. Don't need to prolong
Moving on.
that. All right, newsletter,
Not tonight.
okay? Now, Mr. Padilla put a very long and contract on in our folders for updates. Can you just briefly discuss what the changes are, any material changes?
You're talking about the accept.
Yeah.
Yes,
Oh, sorry, that was me.
Really missed it.
Oh, I'm sorry. He talked to me about it. Okay, sorry, Dr.
So
Gussie.
another hat that I wear is I'm the chair of the board for Accept. So We had a request from Westboro Public Schools to join the board about, a year plus ago. And then the the executive director, Donna Flaherty, met with DESI. And they went through and spent many, many months asking for revisions to the agreement as we add this new person, and then they wanted some changes. So I think Lisa put the red line version in there. Not substantive changes, but I can just tell you that they're all recommended by DESI, so I don't know that we have a lot of control over them, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, I was just reading through them. In these type of documents, sometimes it's hard to tell what the meaningful stuff is. And I even looked at the summary, but I mean, if it's recommended by DESI and everyone else is fine with it, then I'm fine with it.
So unless you have questions, I can just read, sorry, there's some of the specific changes was DESI, I know you made a lot of changes to document. And then on section 13, the general provisions was removed from the table of contents in the document. In section 1 was where I mentioned Westboro Public School District was added as a member district. Section 5, the conditions of membership number 2, we reworded the language regarding a representative board member that is not appropriately attending and participating in the board meetings. What was happening, it's very frustrating when we show up to meetings, we need a quorum of 9, and now we'll need a quorum of 10, and people tell you at the last minute, but then 8 of us are there driving there, so we have to have people take it seriously. I will tell you the best attended meeting I've been in since I've been there was the last meeting. They all, I think almost all but one district was there, so that was great, so we're going to hammer that. And then on section 14, the non-discrimination, the date of July 1, 2024 was added as expected date for the amendment to take effect. So if you don't have questions about the revisions, then it would just be that you would vote to accept the collaborative agreement with the amendments, and then you'd sign off, Dan, as the school committee member.
Move to accept the collaborative agreement as presented.
Second by Dawn.
Any discussion? All's in favor? That carries 6-0. 6-0, it's not like a score of a game. But I'm just so the last thing on our public agenda is, and I'll get these out to the committee, but right before this meeting, the collective bargaining team for the teachers unit met to approve the minutes from our collective bargaining sessions on January 10th, January 24th, February 12th, February 29th, and March 11th, and we approved them with the condition, approved but not released the minutes. So we'll send those to you, but they are still subject to executive session for now. If at some point we decided or if either things resolve or we decide to release them, we'll come back for a vote to release the minutes. And I'll get those out to you. Our next scheduled meeting is April 4th. However, that will be when we do our budget hearing. But since we do not have a budget, we do not have a meeting between now and then, and therefore that would also be the same time that the rest of the committee were to see the sort of the budget subcommittee's recommended budget. We thought that, or I thought we might try to schedule an additional sort of budget meeting, essentially, the last week of March. I get it, but I mean, that's the hearing. So in theory, when we're talking about cuts and talking about override, there's just there's a lot that can change between now and then that will make it it's not just going to be a budget, right?
So when will you present? When did you want to do that?
So the week of March 25th, can we take a look?
We scheduled office hours.
On the 28th, so that's off. What is the availability for the 27th or the 26th?
Ideally, you guys would be there if we needed to
Well,
do
I
it.
think
The 25th.
we would have one item.
Holy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
It's a holiday.
Which one?
The 25th.
Okay.
The 25th is.
It's holy.
So what is the availability for the 27th or the 26th?
I'm reluctantly available.
I'm also
27th.
reluctantly available.
How's your calendar looking?
27th, we have a full admin training till 5:15, is it?
It would be something I think
It would
in the
have to be in the
evening.
evening.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
This would.
6 o'clock?
So we could start as early as 6 o'clock?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's
And we do it here, this would be, I mean,
Yeah.
you know.
I will ask Deanne, we'll remind you, but we have to, Joni has to present on the Student Opportunity Act,
Okay,
so she'll have that.
so we can add that, and then we may also have,
I'm sorry.
well,
we
there's
were
some other budget things we may have, yeah.
Oh, I don't know what we
So we'll just get the, like, it'll be a very brief agenda, but a brief agenda, but a lot to discuss within the agenda. So do we decide the 26th at 6?
I thought we said we're saying the 27th.
Oh, sorry, 27th, that's Wednesday? The 27th at 6, okay.
Wednesday, the 27th.
Are you, Keith,
Yes.
Keith, since this is budget, are you available the 27th at 6?
I looked like we all were.
Your boss just said you were, so.
What do you want to do?
Well, he doesn't have another meeting here.
5:30 possibility, since they have a meeting till 5:15.
Well, I mean, do they want
Would you rather be done
to,
early or not have that downtime, assuming other folks could get there at 5:30?
5:16?
5:30.
5:16?
Or would you rather have a break?
We're used to not having breaks.
But okay.
You could eat dinner while we met.
Would you rather like be done earlier, or would you rather like be able to eat dinner in the
5:30 is
middle?
fine.
I will post for 5:30, and
Okay.
if somehow things go over and we have to start at 6, you can always start a meeting later. You can't start it earlier, so we'll post for 5:30.
On the 27th.
Yeah.
On the 27th.
Not. I'm not going to say the other number, it's going to be too many.
27th at 5:30, yes.
A calendar invite.
And
And we're expected to vote at that meeting, is that correct?
So it would be, we will try to get as much information to you as quick, soon as possible if we have something so that you can look at it. Yes, ideally it would be to vote because then we meet with the Finance Committee on April 2nd. We meet with the Select Board on April 1st. So yes, ideally we would vote. It isn't required, but it would be ideal. Okay, anything else? We're done with our agenda. We do have a reason for executive session. We have 2 tonight. The first to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining. If an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the public body and the chair so declares, and this is strategy related to collective bargaining with the HFT. And then also to comply with or act under the authority of or general or special law or federal grant and aid requirements. There may be a provision in state statute or federal grants that require or specifically allow a public body to consider a particular issue in a closed session before entering executive session on its purpose. I don't think I need to read that. A public body may, so we're meaning to be in compliance with FERPA, the Family Education Rights Privacy Act, and Massachusetts Student Privacy and Student Records laws, and this specifically relates to an update on the act of hate speech involving a minor child. That requires a roll from which we will not return.
Turn. Moved by Cynthia. Second.
Roll call, Lisa.
Yes.
Amanda.
Yes.
Cynthia.
Yes.
Sarah. Dawn.
Yes.
Dan, yes. Thank you very much. We stand adjourned.